Buenas noches. So I'm so happy to be here among you here in Chicago, as a Chicagoan now. I just want to thank all of you, especially for this honor to be here this evening. Quiero comenzar dando las gracias a todos, especialmente por ahora me tienen como un hermano aquí en la ciudad de Chicago. Y me han dicho de que tengo que hablar en Spanglish, so I'll keep going back and forth as I'm very used to doing. So let me begin by, just to, one of my friends is not here tonight, Anthony Suarez Moose. We go back for a long time from our days in Miami and serving the Archdiocese of Miami. But I want to thank Vince and all of you who have planned this event this evening. I know it takes a lot of work from a lot of people, and a lot of recognition is due, and so I want to begin by expressing that gratitude. I want to just share a little bit tonight about my history, my humble beginnings in terms of my parents and growing up, and how I, got to be the U.S. ambassador to the Holy See. Let me begin by saying that I'm a child of exile parents, and so I can identify with a lot of you in this room, especially the young people. I came to the United States when I was a little boy, and have very little memories of my country of birth, that is Cuba. I left when I was a little boy and spent 2 years in Spain, in Madrid, and then we made the trip all across the ocean back to the United States, and I grew up in Miami. So I went to elementary school, to junior high school and high school, public schools in Miami. And I'm the son of a waiter and a data entry operator. My parents never really went to school, and I'm the first one in my family to receive a high school education, a college degree, a master's degree, and a PhD from Notre Dame. And so I just want to, this is partly a pep talk for all the young people in this room. And I was, let me just say a few words in Spanish what I just said. Estaba acabando de decirle que soy hijo de exiliados cubanos. Llegué a los Estados Unidos cuando era muy joven. Mi padre siempre fue camarero, mi madre trabajó, aparte de ser de estar en la casa, trabajó para una compañía de computadoras. Y fui la primera persona, tengo un hermano, pero fui el primero de la familia en terminar high school, en recibir una educación a nivel universitario, recibí una maestría y un doctorado en teología. So I decided, in fact, I was originally thinking I was going to study medicine because I really wanted to become a pediatrician. And so I finished my degree in pre-med, but then became fascinated with philosophy and theology. And so I became actually a seminarian for the Archdiocese of Miami and studied at the seminary for a number of years. And then left the seminary and went to Notre Dame, where I continued my studies as a layperson, both in terms of my master's degree and my PhD. It was at Notre Dame that I met my wife, and we started having children. And I've taught in a number of places in the United States at the university level. The last of those places before I went to Rome was at the College of St. Benedict in St. John's University, and I know that someone from the board that I just met is actually a Johnny, and so I can see him over there. So I was teaching at St. John's University when I received a call on behalf of the senator from Illinois and the former resident of Chicago named Barack Obama. And Barack Obama selected me as the 9th U.S. ambassador to the Holy See. In case you're wondering why the Holy See and not the Vatican, is because the Holy See is the term that is used to designate this state under international law. And so it is a sovereign state recognized under international law, and it is a state that is headed by the Pope and the Roman Curia. And so the Vatican is much more a term that is used relative to Vatican City, and the place where the church kind of like does its administration in the city of Rome. But it is its own territory, and so for many of you who have been there in Rome know that Vatican City is basically, when you enter Vatican City, you're entering a different sovereign entity. So the Holy See is that sovereign international entity recognized under law that is able to both accept and send ambassadors. The Pope's ambassadors are called the nuncios, and they are all over the world. And then the Holy See has diplomatic relations with quite a number of countries that then send ambassadors to the Holy See to work with the Church on a number of issues. So I wanted to share with you a little bit in terms of, right now, as it was mentioned, after I left my diplomatic service, I returned to teaching, and right now I am a professor at Loyola University of Chicago. And before I forget, I want to mention an initiative that we at Loyola started, which might actually be of interest to a number of young men and women in this room. And that is Loyola University, in the model of the Cristo Rey High Schools, has begun a college called Arrupe College in downtown. And so 70% of our students are Latinas at Arrupe College. And the model is after the Cristo Rey model, which basically is able to give the students basically 100% tuition and gives them the solid preparation to then go on and finish the bachelor's degree at either Loyola University or another university locally or nationally. So I want to make you aware of that because we just launched that college this year, and we hope to make it a success story in the country. And so again, 70% of our students right now at Arrupe College are Latinos. A number of them are dreamers. And so I want to point that out because I know that in this group of tonight there are probably a number of dreamers, and I want to say that that will not stop you from getting an education, and we want to make sure that there are institutions that will continue to make sure that you can fulfill your dream. So briefly, when I was an ambassador, I worked under a different. Many people ask me, so what is an ambassador? What does the U.S. ambassador of the United States at the Vatican do? And so basically the U.S. ambassador, even though I had a theology degree, I wasn't there really to teach theology. I was there to do diplomatic work. And so what did we do? So the United States has a foreign policy, and wherever that foreign policy objectives coincide with the foreign policy of the Holy See, because the Pope is not just the head of the church, but he's actually the head of the state. And so the Holy See also has its foreign policy objectives that they pursue. So wherever there was a correlation between the United States and the Holy See, we were able to work together on a number of issues. And so what are some of those issues that we worked together under my tenure? Well, we worked under issues like the defense of human rights throughout the world. We worked on the issues of trying to really identify and stop human trafficking. So I had a series of conferences. One of them was Building Bridges of Freedom, in which I brought together religious leaders, civic leaders, and leaders from government agencies and from governments to try to cooperate on trying to address what is called modern-day slavery, the trafficking of persons. We also worked on humanitarian assistance, and so when I was the ambassador, we had the earthquake in Haiti and the earthquake in Chile, and we had the tsunami in Japan, and we had a number of humanitarian crises caused by various humanly and naturally caused catastrophes. And so I worked to address some of that with organizations like Caritas Internationalis. The other thing that we worked with was the global crisis of migration. You know, when Pope Francis became Pope, his first trip outside of Vatican City really was to, and really the first trip outside of Rome really, not Vatican City, but actually out of Rome, was to the island of Lampedusa, which is the Ellis Island of the United States. So for him, this theme of migration has been very, very, very much a part of his pontificate from the very beginning. The other thing that I worked on was the Arab Spring and the ongoing crisis in the Middle East. And so those were some of the things that I did when I was, the ambassador. And there were moments of a lot of stress, and there were moments of a lot of blessing, and there were moments of a lot of satisfaction as I tried to work with men and women of goodwill throughout the world in trying to address some of the key challenges that affect the human family. So what I like to do for the remaining part of my talk is to speak a little bit about dreaming. And so, in Pope Francis's vision about dreaming. Hablé un poquito de lo que desempeñé durante mi estadía como embajador de los Estados Unidos, operando con la Santa Sede en algunos de los objetivos, sobre todo con lo que es la lucha contra el tráfico de personas, los derechos humanos, las catástrofes naturales y causadas por humanos. Y ahora quisiera hablar un poquito de lo que es el sueño y el Papa soñador. So let me turn to the dreaming and the Pope who dreams, and specifically talk about Pope Francis. We all just welcomed Pope Francis in our country a few weeks ago, which was an exciting time. I was at the White House to welcome the Pope, and it was really electric. It was amazing. The White House had flags, the American flag and the Vatican flag lined up. The whole Washington had lined up flags of the American and the Vatican flag, and it was just very exciting to be there at the lawn when he pulled in his little car, and he got out, and everyone welcomed him to the United States officially. Before he came to the States, he went to Cuba, and in this theme of dreaming began there because a young Cuban student of your age group addressed him and talked to him about his dreams for Cuba and his dreams for the young people of Cuba. And the Pope, in a spontaneous way, began to encourage the young man and all young men and women in Cuba to dream big, to dream, very big. And then he came to the United States and addressed Congress, and he spoke about dreaming, and he selected 4 dreamers. He selected Abraham Lincoln, he selected Martin Luther King Jr., Dorothy Day, and Thomas Merton, 2 Catholics and 2 non-Catholics. And all of these persons are dreamers and have to do with social justice. They dream big about the preferential option for the little ones, for the marginalized, for those who sometimes society does not recognize, society sees as the non-persons. And so this Pope has a specific preferential option for those persons. And so I'd like us to think about and invite you, all young men and women, to dream, to dream big, and to not be afraid to dream. I'm not standing at this podium if somehow my parents did not invite me to dream, if I did not somehow, through the love and the support of parents, friends, the church, because in many ways my journey to theology began in Miami in a Catholic youth group in my parish. And so I got very involved in the youth group, and that led me to greater involvement in service to the church, and that led me then to philosophy and to theology, and then to the work that has brought me here to Chicago and to continue to serve the people of God in whatever ways that I can. And so I'd like to invite all of you, especially the young men and women, regardless of where you are, to really, to really think about the possibilities that Laya had for you to contribute to a better world, for you to make a little contribution, whether it's in your parishes, whether it's in your town, in your community, in this city, to making this world a better place. And in order to perhaps invite you to do that, I'd like to just mention 4 things that define, this Pope wherever he goes. And this Pope oftentimes speaks about 4 things. The first one is the integral ecology and approach that he has to life. Integral meaning holistic, meaning that he really wants to look at all life as interconnected. And in his latest encyclical, he really talks about how we are all interconnected, not just human beings, but all creatures of God. And he calls for us to care for one another and for the planet that we live in. And so the first thing is for us to embrace that kind of inclusive vision whereby we begin to care for our neighbor, we begin to care for each other, and we are not, we're not so focused upon whether the neighbor is documented, undocumented, whether the neighbor is black and white, whether the neighbor is whatever, whoever he may be, but rather that every human being is created in God's image and has an inherent dignity. And this Pope calls us, to embrace that vision. The second thing that he calls us is, of course, among God's creatures and among persons, he calls us to specifically love those who are marginalized, to attend, to care, to heal, specifically the wounds of those who are marginalized, of those who are oppressed. And so the second piece is extremely important. We need to watch out for everyone, but in a special way, we need to be careful to attend to those among us who are suffering. Perhaps an undocumented person, perhaps someone who is in pain, perhaps someone who has been marginalized for whatever reasons that person may have been marginalized. The third thing the Pope has invited us is to create a culture of encounter. And I think this is a beautiful vision, instead of embracing cultural wars, instead of embracing, and making enemies, let's try to see the best in one another. Let's try to really call the best out of each one of us. Let's try to empower, the gifts and the goodness that each one of us has to contribute to making this world a better place to live. And finally, and I think this is extremely important, his central message revolves around practicing mercy. And so many times we want to judge others. Many times we want to, all too often we want to, demonize others. And this Pope calls us to stop that practice and instead embrace mercy. We have seen it again and again. And I think that this is the way to a better society, a way to spring forth a new way of being human. And so I want to, with that, end this evening, and thank you so much for allowing me to address you tonight. And know that I'm a friend. I am right down the block at Loyola University of Chicago on the North Shore campus. And I look forward to being able to accompany you and to continue to work with you here in Chicago on behalf of our people, on behalf of all the people of God, and on behalf of our city, our state, and our country, and the world that so much needs each one of us to make a difference. Muchas gracias. Que Dios los bendiga y que Dios bendiga a su familia.